Hello? Hello, hello. So sorry. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Sorry about that delay. My microphone wasn't working and that's it basically. Hello and welcome to the August 2024 monthly update. You may notice I'm wearing a short-sleeved shirt. That's because I've spent the last 3 hours in the sun, because we've actually had a couple of days of nice weather in this awful little country. So that's nice. That's why this was delayed. I normally do these at 4, but I wanted to enjoy the sun while we have it. So there. I hope you've all had a good August. I've had a very productive August. I've resumed uploads on the gaming channel, as I'm sure any of you will have probably noticed. Been playing Amnesia Rebirth. I've also not yesterday, the day before yesterday, I recorded some more Half-Life Opposing Force. So that'll be coming out soon. Well, the first part of that will be coming out on Monday, obviously. I'm hoping to resume the regular 3 uploads a week thing. Half-Life, indie game, Garry's Mod, and then something else on Friday next week. So that should be going back to normal. I've also recorded a few songs for the next album. Well, I should just get onto the album, shouldn't I? Because this month I've released my 18th full-length album called MOID 18, appropriately. There are 3 links in the description. There's a link to the playlist of all the individual songs on YouTube. There's a link to the full album in one video. And then there's also a link to the Bandcamp version of the album, which if you buy it, there are some bonus tracks that you can purchase. Just as a little extra if you want to. But the next album, which will be MOID 19. It will be called MOID 19, but it's called Decay Pieces. That I'd finished recording before I'd even finished recording this one, MOID 18. But the first single of that will be coming out the month after next. And then some things from that will come out, and then that album will come out, and then the album coming out after that, which will be MOID 20, I've already got nearly half of it recorded. And that won't be coming out until some point next year, early next year, February or something like that. Don't hold me to that exact month though. Although I think for Christmas I might release like an EP with 4 songs from that album, because they're all very short songs. Most of them, because I'm giving myself a kind of limitation for the album. I'm recording it only with acoustic guitars. There's no electric guitar. And that's very limiting, but it's also forcing me to find creative ways to use it. But because it's very limiting, most of the songs are only like a minute long. There's a couple of longer ones, but mostly like a minute, 2 minute is about as long as most of them get so far. And so I'm thinking of instead of releasing singles leading up to it, I'm thinking of maybe just releasing an EP for Christmas as like a kind of 4 singles in one go kind of thing. I might not do that, but I might do it. That's what I'm telling you now. But basically, that's all I've done this month. What can one say? Plans for next month? Carry on doing what I've been doing. I may do a live stream tomorrow. If Digby is available. I don't know if he is. I'm going to ask him. I should have already asked him, really, but I'll ask him later. I also need to ask my brother if Steam will be available. That's the most important thing, because if Steam isn't available, then obviously I can't do it. But I'll get around to that. I wish I wouldn't knock things over on this bloody desk. Anyway, so that's that. Things I've watched this month. I've watched quite a diverse variety of things. Also, I apologise if my microphone drops out at any point. The connection seems to be a bit loose for whatever reason. I think this wire may be slightly, on its last leg, so to speak. So if the mic drops out, I'm sorry about that, but there's not. I could use a different one, but I can't be bothered now. The first thing I've watched this month was My Little Pony, the movie from 1986. Why I watched this? I was bored. That's why I watched it. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. It wasn't awful. I didn't want to kill myself. Which isn't an amazing achievement. Because very few things do make me want to do that. In fact, I'd say probably zero. But anyway, the point is, I enjoyed watching it. It has Danny DeVito. He does a voice in it. Madeline, however you pronounce her name, Khan, who obviously worked a lot with Mel Brooks, she does a voice in it. The other sister who she's sort of coexisting with, I'm pretty sure I know her from something else as well. But anyway, it was alright. I don't really know what else to say about it other than that it wasn't dreadful. I'll probably never watch it again, but, you know, it was good to waste time. It was better than watching, an hour and a half of nothing. Just. Then, to balance out the fluffy of that, I watched another very fluffy, happy children's film, Zombie Holocaust. Which also includes ponies and little fluffy magical animals as well. No, it doesn't. It contains people being murdered by cannibals and zombies. Yeah. Zombie Holocaust was the third and final Italian zombie film that, or not a zombie film, but the third and final Italian film that Ian McCulloch was involved with Zombie 2 and Contamination, and then this, Zombie Holocaust. It's probably the worst of the three. Really not very good at all. If I had to be honest with you, which is kind of my thing, really, isn't it? I'm probably less likely to rewatch that than My Little Pony one. But anyway, that was that. Review, dull for most of it. There's some good special effects, as there usually are in these films. Particularly the zombie special effects were very good. Like, there's this one bit where they're being attacked by cannibals, and this zombie shows up and scares the cannibals off. And the makeup on that particular zombie, in fact, I might be able to find it. Also, I had to replace the link, because the actual link was got deleted before this live stream even happened. This guy looks pretty cool. Pretty creepy. So there. So that is that. Then another switch up. I just wanted to like switch things up and like alternate dark and lightness. So then I watched the first series of when I watched the My Little Pony film, the 1986 one. I thought, because that was like the first thing. There were a couple of specials before, but they were repeated in the series. And what I was thinking was, I was going to go through the entire My Little Pony franchise in order. Ironically, of course. I'm not strange or anything. But it wasn't that good, and I didn't really want to watch the rest of the 80s stuff, so I just thought I'd skip straight to the one that everyone seems to like. Friendship is Magic, which started in 2010. Series 1 went from 2010 to 2011, and I quite enjoyed it, to be honest. It's entertaining. What can I say? Like this, I'm going to continue. I only watched Series 1 today, because I want to pace myself with it. Don't want to go down the rabbit hole too quickly, you know. Don't want to go mental straight away. Want to slowly descend into insanity. But it was quite enjoyable. What can I say? All the songs in it aren't exactly my style, as I'm sure you know. It's very sort of pop music. The music in it, you know. And you know I'm more into rock stuff. Well, we're going to talk about that later, aren't we? But it wasn't bad. I liked it more than the film, anyway. I know there is a film called My Little Pony, the movie, that came out as part of that series. Nearly 40 years after the first film, actually. In fact, 31. So not 40. 31 years after. Yeah. But anyway. Then, after that, another zombie film. And now, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's either Anthropophagus, or Anthropophagus, or Hambobogulus, or Chinky Wockabus, or Rango Tinky Winky Plinky Plonky Winky Wonky Ophagus. But it's that. It was released in 1980. This one had Tisa Farrow in it, who starred with Ian McCulloch, who was in Zombie Holocaust. They both starred in Zombie 2. This is also a deeply inferior film to Zombie 2. I rewatched Zombie 2 this month because I showed my mum. Because I watch a lot of films with my mum and my dad. But I watched them with mum first because dad always talks through films. And I don't want that to ruin it for mum, so I always watch a film with mum first and then I show it to dad. But anyway. And Zombie 2, rewatching it, I realised it's not just a good, gory, special effects Italian zombie film. It's a genuinely good film. Like, it actually has artistic merit. Which these two, Zombie Holocaust and Anthropophagus, they do not have artistic merit. These are exploitation films of the most boring variety. Like, if you come to them just to see some graphic images, you're gonna enjoy them. But if you come to them to actually get a good film out of it, you're not going to enjoy them. And I really came to them for a good film, because a lot of the other Italian films I've watched have genuinely been really good films, and these two are just utter crap. There's some very gruesome stuff, which I do, I like. Like, there's this bit where one of the zombies, which there's no actual zombies in Anthropophagus, they're cannibals, or there's one cannibal guy. But he's all deformed, and it's whether he's a zombie, it's kind of left. It's not really specified. It's kind of left up to the imagination, or more likely, they just couldn't be bothered to actually do it. To offer an explanation. But there's this scene where he rips a baby out of a lady's tummy, and then eats it. That's the good stuff. But that's really the only memorable thing about it. That's that. And then, now this is a pretty big deal, because this has been in the making, this program that I watch next, for 3 years. And I've been intending to watch it for nearly a year. And the show is Murder Drones, which has just, this month, ended, completed, about 10 days ago, less than 10 days ago even, I think on the 23rd, finished, end. Now, I discovered it in December of last year. I was recommended a video of, and I can remember what it was, that is one of that sort of meme of like the SAS guy or whatever it is saying, I know where you live and I'm going to track you down, and I've been trained in all sorts of different things. And the Michael Kovac, who does the voice for N in the show, who I've watched a lot of clips. I've discovered him through that clip, and he seems like a very interesting guy. I've watched a few other things with him in, and he is seems like a interesting fella. But anyway, it was him of doing that, and he was doing, because N in Murder Drones, in case none of you have seen it, is like this very fluffy, lovable little character, and the idea of him saying that kind of stuff is just amusing, so that's why they did it. But that was the video that was first recommended to me, and I thought, alright, what's this? And I saw it was from this show, and I watched a couple of clips, nothing, with spoilers or anything like that, but with just a couple of clips. I thought, alright, this seems quite interesting, and I saw that there were only going to be 6 episodes, and I saw that 4 of them were already out, and they lied, or they were misinformed by themselves, that the final 2 episodes were going to be out by spring. Now, that obviously didn't happen, because the final episode took them a lot longer to finish than they thought it was going to, so it wasn't until this month that it came out. But I am glad I waited, because it meant I got to watch it in one go. Maybe I'm just too used to, because obviously I get stuff on DVD, so, like, if I'm watching Doctor Who, I can watch a 6-part story that, in reality, would have taken a month and a half to be originally broadcast. I can watch it in a day, you know? And so maybe it's that privilege that's kind of made me uncomfortable with waiting for things. But I thought, instead of watching the first 4 episodes and then having to wait months to watch the next ones, I just thought, alright, I'm just going to wait until it's all out and then watch it. And when they announced that the final episode was finally coming out on the 23rd, on the 7 days leading up to that, I watched 1 episode of this a day. That was the plan. I ended up watching 3 in the first day, 2 in the second day, taking 2 days off, and then watching 1 up to the... which still doesn't work out mathematically, but just forget it. Basically, I watched them in a much closer proximity, because, as it says here, the first episode came out in 2021, and the final episode has just come out. So that's how long I would have had to wait if I'd started from the beginning. And I just wanted to watch it in one go, so I did. Not in one go, but you know what I mean. But it was very good. It's not perfect. By no means is it perfect. I have quite a few problems with it, actually, but I enjoyed it a lot. I think, like, the best stuff about it is the characters. The animation is quite good, especially towards the end. At the start, it's a little bit... I don't want to say cheap looking, because that would be insulting, but that is what it looks like. The first episode looks very sort of... not very, but kind of... the kind of animation you see that can be done by, like, one person, you know what I mean? Not very polished, that's the word. Anti-polished, that's what it looks like. Non-polished, unpolished. By episode 2, it's, you know, film quality, it's, you know, much better. But the first episode, some scenes in that are, like, you know, kind of look kind of unfinished, the animation. I can't explain it in words that don't sound insulting. I'm not trying to be insulting, but you know what I mean. The biggest problem with it, though, I feel, is the fact that there are only 8 episodes. Now, obviously, a lot of people are upset about this because they want more. I don't necessarily want more. I just want what's there to be expanded upon, you know? I don't want, like, a season... well, I mean, I wouldn't mind a season 2, but you know what I mean? I'm not saying carry on the story from where it ended. I mean, the stuff that was already in there should have been explored more, because there's so much packed into it that isn't really explained, a lot of it, or it kind of... a lot of it feels very rushed, and there's no time to breathe in it. Or there's very little time to breathe. And also the inconsistent lengths of the episodes is somewhat irritating. Like, for example, the most obvious contrast is between the first episode and the second episode. The first episode, and I'm rounding here, is 27 minutes. It's actually 26 minutes, 56 seconds. But 27 minutes, the first episode. The second episode is only 17 and a half. That's the biggest contrast. Most of them sit around 20. But still, it's like... it's just irritating a little bit. I don't know what else to say about it. It just... because it's like, they've set the 26 minutes there. And so anything that's longer than that feels like it's lacking. Less than that, sorry. You know what I mean? And I feel like they should have used the time to expand upon things and just make things a little clearer. I mean, the plot is clear as crystal if you study it frame by frame and figure out all the things and watch a load of videos analyzing it. I don't really like doing that. I just like watching the thing, and if the thing doesn't explain itself, I'm just kind of lost. And I had to watch, after I watched the first 7, and I was waiting for the final episode to come out, I watched a video explaining the plot, and only then did I actually get, oh, that's that, and that's this, and this, and the, But it was very good. I just wish they'd... I mean, I understand why they didn't, because it's really expensive, and they're, a Glitch Productions, in case anyone doesn't know, that's the company that's making this. They're a very small independent company. Small for company standpoints. I think they have about 200 people working for them, which is, a lot of people, but for a company, it's very small. And obviously, some of those people are working on other things at the same time, so, there's probably only like 50 or something people working on this. So it's, it's a very small production, and obviously it's very expensive, and so I know why they only did 8. I just wish that they'd taken a little bit more time. That's all I'm saying. But that's not really criticism, that's more just an unfortunate byproduct of the fact that it's a low budget, or fairly low budget, independent production. It's not gonna be able to completely flesh everything out, because they simply can't afford to spend that much time. So I get it. I just wish, as someone who very much enjoyed what is there, I just wish certain things were just, like there's this kind of discourse surrounding it. This is my end of the criticism of the show. This is now me criticizing the fans of the show, and the fans of independent, indie animation on YouTube, that kind of thing. This sort of anti-filler attitude that a lot of them have. Like, a lot of people say, oh, I love how they have no filler episodes, as if a filler episode is a bad thing. A filler is fantastic. I love filler. Filler gives, it gives you time to breathe. It gives the characters... I'm talking about filler within episodes that are action-packed, and entire separate filler episodes. I mean, example of this, now this is a completely different kind of show to Murder Drones, but Red Dwarf, one of the greatest episodes of Red Dwarf is Marooned, from I think the second episode from Series 3, which is filler. It's literally just filler. It's Rimmer and Lister stranded on this island. It's one of those locked in the freezer type episodes, which were always made to save a bit of the budget for other episodes, because they knew Backwards was going to be quite expensive, and they knew Polymorph was going to be quite expensive, so they thought, we need a low budget episode, so it's just shot pretty much on one set. But it's one of the best, because there's no action, or there's very little action. The only action at that episode is very at the beginning, where the ship crashes on the planet, and then it's just them talking for the whole episode, for like half an hour. And it's one of the best episodes of the show, because you get to explore the characters, and that's what filler is for. You don't really have time to explore the characters if there's no filler, because you don't have time, because it's action, 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 action. And that's what Murder Drones felt like to me. It was just action. Action, 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 action. And I think a lot of the sort of qualities of the characters that a lot of people who watch the show seem to really enjoy, I feel to some extent those qualities are kind of imagined or implied. Like, I see a lot of people saying stuff about some of the characters, interpreting what the characters are like, and then you watch the show and they don't really act like that. I think it's this thing of they have so long to wait between episodes that they keep rewatching the episode, and they imagine, because there's such a long wait between one episode and the next, they kind of invent the storyline in their head, and then they think that that's the truth, and so the people perceive the characters to be a lot more fleshed out than they actually are. And obviously I don't have that effect, because I just watched it in one go. So I didn't have time to make up stuff in my head. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But I feel like this anti-filler, and I've seen it surrounding a lot of the other shows, like The Amazing Digital Circus, which I haven't watched. Again, that's only got 2 episodes out, but I intend to wait until it's finished to watch it, or near finished, you know. But that looks very interesting as well, and shares a lot of the same voice actors as Murder Drones as well. I'm looking forward to that, because it's Glitch. And there's other shows in the works, you know, there's Lackadaisy, which only has its pilot out, which again I haven't watched. I don't like waiting, so I'm just going to wait. I mean, they look really interesting, and I want to get right into them, but they've just started, and I want to let them get a bit of a head start on me before I start on them, you know? But yeah, there's a lot of discussion in the indie world in comment sections, people saying, I think it's great that there's no filler. And I think they're wrong when they say that. That they say filler is entirely bad. Too much filler, yes. I'm not denying that. I'm not saying Murder Drones should have had 100 episodes. But 8 episodes? 12. Let's go with 12. 12 has always worked. So many great shows have had 12 episodes. Fawlty Towers had 12. The Office, proper one, had 12. The Young Ones had 12. I mean, I know those aren't plot-driven shows, but you get what I mean. 12, I'm comfortable with. 8, not really enough in my opinion. You know, and the fact that they're all I put all but 2 episodes are 20 and under. And it just, there's so much room for more stuff. And again, I'm not saying more plot and more I'm not saying stuff added. I'm just saying stuff that's already there expanded upon, given room to breathe, give the characters a chance to relax and a chance to show who the characters actually are, rather than who the fans perceive the characters to be. And there's a lot of stuff in the show that's obviously playing off stuff. Like early on, the characters they have their core personality there, but the kind of other stuff, because you think of a character, there's all this stuff. There's their central sort of rock, that's who they are, and then there's all this other stuff. And all the other stuff in the first few episodes, all this other stuff isn't there. And the fans make up this stuff, and then the later episodes of the show, because it takes so long, they have time to then incorporate this other stuff. And there's lots of stuff in the show later on that's calling back to stuff that didn't happen in the show. It's calling back to stuff the fans have done, which there's 2 sides to it, because it's good that the audience kind of have some input, but I think giving the audience too much input can, bad things can happen. It certainly didn't ruin the show. Ultimately my criticism is everything that's there is very good. It just needs to be expanded on a little bit more. That's my opinion. Moving on. God, we're going for half an hour already. How much of that was spent talking about Murder Drones? Anyway, albums that I've listened to this month. Now, I accidentally, this wasn't on purpose, but I've accidentally listened to 3 artists in a row who sing like this, with a gravelly voice, and all smoke 1,000 packs of cigarettes a day. Complete accident. But, some more extreme than others. But basically, I'll just start at the beginning. That would seem a relatively intelligent place to begin. I started with Tom Waits, who's someone I've heard quite a bit about, but never really investigated until this month. And I doubt I'm going to investigate much in the future. No offense to the man. I'm sure he's lovely. But I listened to his 1983 album Swordfish Trombones, which is considered to be one of his, if not best, one of his, most talked about, most influential, famous records. Apparently the start of a trilogy. I was planning on listening, because, I like to listen to 3 albums of one artist every month. And I was tending to listen to the whole trilogy, but I really didn't like the album that much, so I haven't really checked out the rest of it. Some of it is quite good. some of it I quite like. There's a couple of songs on it. 16 Shells from a 30.6 and Gin Soaked Boy are quite good. I like them. But a lot of it is just, and those two sound a bit like what Fleetwood Mac would have become if Lindsey Buckingham was allowed to continue his version of the band that started with Tusk. But obviously Mick Fleetwood sort of reeled him back into commercialness with Mirage, which wasn't a bad album, but I think it would have been nice for them to go a bit more into that experimental stuff first. But anyway, but apart from those two songs, most of the stuff in this I just don't like that much. It just seems it's sort of very down and just sort of it's kind of just like a slog to get through. I may revisit him one day, but that day will not be very soon. If I had to recommend one song, I can't. Like, those two that I said were the best. 16 Shells from the 30.6 and Gin Soaked Boy. Gin Soaked Boy's shorter, though, so you might want to go for that one. Then, moving on to an album that I actually enjoyed. I've listened to 3 albums by Captain Beefheart and his Magic Band. The first 3 albums that they released, in fact. The first being Safe as Milk from 1967. This was a very good album. I listened to the mono version, or at least it says mono. But when I loaded it into... When I want to put an album on my phone, there's this really long process, and part of it involves putting it into Sony Vegas, putting all the tracks together, like using that, because it's quicker than doing it in Audacity. And they're not mono. They're stereo. So why they say mono, I couldn't tell you. It literally says here, sure enough, yes I do. Mono, Zigzag Wanderer. Mono, call me mono. They're stereo. So, but the reason I picked the mono version, because I started listening to the stereo version, and I listen to stuff in mono anyway. I don't like, the only time I listen to stuff in stereo is when I'm mixing my own music. I don't really like stereo. It kind of, I don't like it. So I listen to stuff in mono, but it was really muddy, the stereo version, even though I was listening to it in mono. That might have been the reason, but it's like, the mix doesn't seem different. It just was muddy. And so I sort of thought, alright, I'll try this version and see if that's better. And this version was better, so I just stuck with the mono version, even though it's not mono. But basically, this was a much better album. I very much enjoyed this one. It's kind of psychedelic blues. That's what I'd call it. Not... No, but then again, Jimi Hendrix is kind of psychedelic blues, isn't he? Kind of violent psychedelic blues. That would be a better way of putting it, I think. Violent, sort of assaulting the ears kind of thing. Again, that's not really... I can't describe it. It's the blues, and it's electric, and it's psychedelic. But it's a different kind of psychedelic blues to Jimi Hendrix, but it's still psychedelic blues. It's on the more... If you had psychedelic rock there and blues there, Jimi Hendrix is there. These people are about here. But this I really liked. There's... I don't even know which ones I'll be able to pick as my favourite. I think my favourite song on this, definitely the one I've listened to, like re-listened to the most, is the opening track, Sure Enough and Yes I Do, which is a brilliant title, Sure Enough and Yes I Do. And then I'd say the next best one is probably Plastic Factory. So, if you can only listen to a couple of songs from Safe as Milk, if you can only listen to one, listen to Sure Enough Yes I Do, and if you can listen to 2, Sure Enough Yes I Do, and Plastic Factory are the ones I would recommend from Captain Beefheart's Safe as Milk. Then, I moved on to their second album, released the following year in 1968, Strictly Personal. Now for this, I didn't listen to the version that I've got linked. I changed the link. I listened to the version that's the official upload, which is really muddy, but I didn't find this version until afterwards. So this is now the version that this is the version I'm going to put on my phone, and this is the version that I will listen to later. The version I've got is a 2023 remix by a channel called Ant2Man-B. This album is going much more towards the experimental end of things. There's some very experimental moments on this. I'd say the best song on it is probably Beetlebones and Smoking Stones, an obvious reference to two of my other favourite bands. Not that this is one of my favourite bands, it's not, but I think they're okay. Their first album is definitely the best of the three I've listened to so far. But this one, they started going a lot more experimental. There's a lot of like effects, there's a lot of reverb, there's a lot of phasing, which I think it was just added by the producer, and I'm pretty sure Captain Beefheart hated the sound of it, and he released a different version of the album a few years later without that. But I like how it sounds, so this is the version I am going to stick with. The best song on it, I already said, so I'm not going to go with that again. But yeah, this is... it's kind of just on the edge of still being upbeat enough to enjoy, but also having a lot of experimental stuff going on, so it's quite good. Then, I listened to what could be considered an infamous album in music history. I listened to the double 1969 album called Trout Mask Replica. Now, this album I had attempted to listen to several years earlier. Several years ago, I should say. Because I'd already heard of the first track, the first track, Frownland, and I really enjoyed that, and I still do. But then I got to the second track on my first listen, and it's just kind of a poetry thing, and I got bored and stopped listening, even though most of the songs are actually a lot more like Frownland than they are like that one. So if I just listened to the very next song, I'd probably gotten back on track. But this is considered by a lot of people to be one of the most experimental albums of all time. As someone who's listened to quite a few albums, it's not the most experimental album of all time, and it's also not all that great. I like Frownland, I love Frownland, it's a great song, but there's like 2 songs on the album. There's Frownland, there's that kind of one where the band is playing, and then there's the kind of track where it's just Captain Beefheart's voice and he's reading out a poem or something. And those are the 2 songs on the album, pretty much. Every song that features the band is them just doing stuff. And they don't even change, like, the guitar tone. So pretty much every song that features the band sounds the same. They're doing different rhythms and stuff, obviously. They are different, I'm not denying that. But they all kind of blur together. Like, I can't remember a single other song from the album. Apart from maybe Moonlight on Vermont, but that was recorded before they'd gone into this mood. That was recorded during the sessions for the previous album. And so is, slightly better. But really, I can't see myself revisiting this album very often. The remix by... Again, I listened to and this time I listened to it straight away, the remix by Ant2Man-B. It's very good, because I compared it to a clip from just a regular version of it. And it sounds great. It does sound great, but good sound quality can't exactly make up for... I'm not going to say bad musicianship, because it's not. They're not improvising. They're rehearsed. And I'm not denying the ability and talent of these musicians. These are very able, very talented musicians being made to play crap by a lunatic. And if you read about the production of the album, and I always like to read a bit about the production before I listen to the album, maybe that's a mistake, but hearing about the way he treated the members of the band while they were recording this album, it makes it very hard to enjoy, when you know that at times he was physically violent towards other members of the band and emotionally abusive as well. It's very hard to enjoy the album once you know that. It's not like a John Lennon situation where, in his early years he was quite violent, but then by the time he'd been making music, he'd become a lot more peaceful and he changed. This album was produced while he was abusing other members of the band and being violent. Apparently, I don't know whether it was during or after the recording of the album, but apparently he threw the drummer down a flight of stairs at some point during the production of the album. So not a nice man. So it's just the first song. If I had to recommend, well, I'd only recommend one song really. I'd only recommend Frownland because it's only 1 minute and 44 seconds. It is good. I like it. But basically, it's just for a double album. There's no variety really. There's like I said, there's like 2 or 3 types of song, and for a double album, it's like. It's just like not enough for me. I expect a little bit more when I listen to a double album than just the same 2 or 3 songs repeated over and over again. Again, they're not exactly the same, but again, they sound the same. So, if they're not the same, but they sound the same, what's the point? And all the behind the scenes stuff only reaffirms what I already thought, that it's not all that fantastic. So yeah, and like I said, it's not that it's too experimental for me or anything, because I know a lot of people when they go on and they say, I don't really like this album, they say, well, it's just too challenging for you. You just don't get it, man. I listen to Yoko Ono, I listen to The Caretaker, I listen to all sorts of stuff that I enjoy. The previous album, Strictly Personal, that was great. Trouthouse Replica is not great, and it's not because it's too complex for me or it's too challenging for me, it's because it is the same 2 songs over and over again for an hour. I have better things to spend my time doing. Like listening to Bob Dylan, for example. So, I've been tending to get into Bob Dylan for a while, because he's just one of those people you need to get into. You can't really call yourself a music listener. You can't really say, like, you can listen to music, you can enjoy music, but you can't really call yourself a music aficionado without having at least listened to a bit of Bob Dylan. But because his discography is so massive and so dense, it's hard to find a place to get started. So I basically just started on the ones that I thought the album cover looked the coolest. Those are the ones that I started with. And so I chose 3 albums which happen to be what, from an outsider's perspective looking in, and I've done very minimal research. I've only read the Wikipedia pages. I haven't looked up reviews or anything like that. But at least considering what people said at the time of these albums' releases, these 3 albums seem to be people's least favourite Bob Dylan albums. That people hate these albums. I've enjoyed all 3 of these albums tremendously, so I'd got to what's it. But I started with Self-Portrait from 1970. This, in contrast to Trouthouse Replica, this is a double album that uses the fact that it's a double album to its advantage by having lots of different kinds of songs on it. There's some like folk stuff with like Alberta and Days of 49. There's some classic sort of Elvis type stuff like I Forgot More Than You'll Ever Know and Let It Be Me. And Bob Dylan does, on those songs, he does a voice and he sounds quite Elvis-y. And if someone played it to me without me knowing it was Bob Dylan, I could not have told you it was Bob Dylan. There's some instrumental tracks, Boogie Woogie and Wigwam. There's tracks where he doesn't sing and these like a choir of women sings, like the opener, All the Tired Horses. There's live stuff from the 1969 Isle of Wight festival. He plays Like a Rolling Stone, Queen the Eskimo, Minstrel Boy, She Belongs to Me. So it's a very diverse album. Again, I listened to it because of the album cover, because it's, as the title suggests, it is a self-portrait painted by Mr. Dylan himself. and I very much like this album cover. I like the colours that he used for it, the kind of, obviously the pink because it's his flesh, but also the blue that he balances it out with. It makes a very sort of, it's kind of a very subtle contrast. It feels like warm and cold, so it's very balanced, and I just really like it. I mean, he was quite a talented painter. I mean, obviously it's not a realistic portrait, but his choice of colours shows that he clearly knew what he was doing. And also the story behind the album amuses me as well, because basically he was being hailed by a lot of people, and is hailed by a lot of people today, to be this kind of prophet, this kind of genius, this mythical figure. And he didn't want to be a mythical figure. He wanted to be just a guy who makes music. And so he basically released this album in an attempt to destroy his reputation. And it just amuses me that he's clearly, obviously a talented musician, because even when he releases an album intending for it to destroy his reputation, he still makes a great album. And that just amuses me. Like, he couldn't be bad. He was trying his hardest to make a bad album, and he couldn't. And that just amuses me. But I really enjoy this. I mean, for my first time listening to anything by Bob Dylan, and when it's an album that people claim to be awful, I just really enjoyed it. Again, a good album cover always helps an album, because when I listen to something on YouTube, I'm sat here in this very chair, in fact, listening to music, and I have the playlist up here on YouTube, and the album cover is right there, full screen. And so, if it's an album cover that I don't like, it always spoils the music a little bit. I've had that problem with Frank Zappa, his album Weasels Rip My Flesh. I didn't enjoy that album. It's probably just as good as his other albums that he released around the time that I did enjoy. But because the album cover is so dreadful, I just didn't enjoy it. So a good album cover is always going to work in an album's favour. And this is a great album cover. If I had to pick my favourite song from it, now it's hard because they're mostly covers, and the originals are not originally from this album, but they're kind of, they're ones that he'd already released that he's just playing live. And it's hard to tell which song I would recommend more than any other, because there's lots that are very, if you want one of his more traditional Bob Dylan type songs that he's singing in his, or I don't know if it's his regular voice, but in his, in his Bob Dylan voice, I'd recommend the final song on the album, Alberta 2, which is the same song as the second song on the album, Alberta 1. And it's like some traditional folk song. I don't know who wrote it. I don't know if anyone knows who wrote it. But and there's a couple of other songs on the album where he's recorded two different arrangements and they're both on the album. But I think Alberta 2, it's just slightly more upbeat, and the band is a bit more active during it. The band is on the first one as well, but it's kind of Alberta 2, you know what I mean? So it's kind of more upbeat, and I prefer that version. So if I had to recommend one song from Self Portrait, it will be Alberta 2. That's the Bob Dylan ones. If I had to recommend one of his more Elvis-like ones, one of his more type ones, more ballady, I'd recommend Let It Be Me. Which again I've listened to quite a few times since the album, and it's a very nice one. I mean, I always listen to albums multiple times. I mean, this album I've listened to about 4 times or something like that. But so yeah, either Let It Be Me or Alberta 2, depending on which version of Bob Dylan you want. Then his next album, not his next album after that, but his next album with an album cover that I liked, which again happens to be one of his least popular. The self-titled Dylan from 1973. This is just a single album. Again, I really like the album cover. It's like he didn't make this one. That's a difference from the first album. He didn't paint this. But it's like, it's a photograph of him in like profile. But then they've done something, and like the dark sections of the ink have been made transparent, and there's these like stripes of paint going through, and it's just like a kind of abstract thing that I really like the look of. I don't know how they got this effect, because this album was not released with his approval. He left his previous record company and moved to a new record company, and he owed that record company other albums, so they just released some leftover material that he hadn't put on one of his albums, and these are all covers. Every single one of this is a cover or a traditional song. And again, I really like this one. My favourite song on this album is definitely the opener, Lily of the West. It has this kind of thumping bass drum beat, and the actual bass, like the bass guitar playing, is really great as well. And I can't really explain it. I just really like it. So if I had to and it's only a single album, and it's actually quite a short one as well. So yeah, if I had to recommend one song from Dylan, it would be Lily of the West, the opening song. If I had to recommend the second one, my second favourite on the album is probably Mr. Bojangles, which is the opener of side 2. He also did a cover of Joni Mitchell's Big Yellow Taxi on it as well. He also did a cover of Simon and Garfunkel's The Boxer on Self Portrait as well, and he did a version of Blue Moon as well. Blue Moon, I saw you standing alone. That one. Which is quite good. And then the final album that I listened to this month was his follow-up to Dylan. Although, of course, Dylan was actually recorded doing the same sessions as Self Portrait, but just took 3 years to release. But this album, another one that I clicked on because I liked the album cover. This is another painting. This one was done by Bob Dylan. And it is Planet Waves from 1974. This is the only one of the 3 albums that I've listened to of his that is composed entirely of originals, or even has any originals on it. I mean, Self Portrait has originals, but they're live performances of his own stuff, and then there's some instrumental stuff. But this is the only one with proper, Bob Dylan original compositions in their original form on the original album they came from. Apparently, this was his final project with the band, who I haven't listened to anything of theirs either, except the stuff that he's done with them, and I know they were at Woodstock, and I've seen that film, so I know some of their stuff. The Weird being the song that I know of theirs. And I know that Bob Dylan also painted the album cover for their debut album, which wasn't with him. He may have been on it. I'm not sure, but I know he painted the album cover. So he was clearly a very talented artist as well. Obviously not a figurative artist, but this kind of abstract kind of style. Impressionistic, Picasso kind of style. But I really liked this album. Really liked it. There's some songs on it that, there's a song appropriately titled Dirge, which is exactly that. Which is easily my least favourite on the album. I'm sure it'll grow on me over time, but I've listened to this album about 4 times now, and it's it is growing on me, but slowly. The best album, again, the opener, On a Night Like This. Great song. I've listened to this so many times since listening to it, and I only listened to this the first time about like 4 days ago, something like that. So, great album. Great song. My second favourite is probably the second song, Going, Going, Gone. But yeah, like most of the songs on this album are fantastic. There's only a few that I think are a bit that I don't like as much. The slow version of Forever Young and Dirge, those are pretty much the only songs that I can't imagine myself ever revisiting on their own. I never skip songs when I listen to an album. Even if it's a song I don't like, I never skip songs. But those are the only 2 I can't imagine myself revisiting on their own. All these other ones, I reckon I'll check out just for the sake of listening to them again at some point. But the best two, they certainly front-loaded the album, and the best two are On a Night Like This and Going, Going, Gone. So just put the album on and listen to the first two songs, and if you like them, keep going. Let it roll, so to speak. Like a Rolling Stone, you could say. And that is all of the albums that I have listened to this month. If I had to recommend a single album to listen to this month, I think the best one I've listened to is Planet Waves, I have to say. It's a lot more compact than the double self-portrait, which still has a bunch of interesting stuff on it, and I really enjoyed. But if you're in a bit of a hurry and you can only bother to listen to a single album rather than a double, Planet Waves is definitely it. It doesn't have my favourite song. My favourite song I've listened to this month, or for the first time this month, is Lily of the West from the Dylan album. But my favourite album is Planet Waves that I've listened to. So yeah, if you're going to listen to one, listen to Planet Waves. Next month, I'll probably listen to... Considering here, I've listened to what are considered to be his 3 worst albums by critics and stuff. All 3 of these albums sold really well. I mean, Self-Portrait went to number 1 in the UK and number 4 in America. So clearly, people liked it. The critics might not have liked it. Apparently, the official Rolling Stone review for Self-Portrait was, "What is this shit?" That was the official Rolling Stone review. But it went to number 1 in the UK and number 4 in America. So clearly people liked it. But these are considered by critics to be his 3 worst albums. Next month, if I do check out any more of his stuff, because I haven't checked out any more Rolling Stones this month. Because obviously I listened to 3 more of theirs last month. I haven't listened to any more yet. Maybe next month I'll get back into them, I don't know. But if I do listen to more Bob Dylan next month, I'll probably go into... earlier, I'll probably listen to the 60s, because again, I've listened to 3 70s albums. He's most famous for his 60s stuff, obviously. So I'll probably listen to 3 of his most popular ones. I've already got them in my head, what I think they'll be. They'll probably be... I can't remember which is the one where he first turned to electric. It's either Bringing It All Back Home or Highway 61 Revisited. I can't remember. They were both like released around the same time. Either one after the other, I can't remember which way around. Whichever one was the one that he first turned to electric. So I know one side has acoustic and the other side electric. Whichever one that is, I can't remember whether it's Highway 61 or Bringing It All Back Home. But whichever one of those is, that's the one. Blonde on Blonde, which I know is another double album. And that's considered by a lot of people to be his ultimate masterpiece. And then I think Nashville Skyline, which is the one he released before Self-Portrait, which again is considered to be one of the classics. So if I do listen to 3 Bob Dylan albums, you can expect it to be those ones. Probably not going to carry on with Captain Beefheart for quite some time. Probably not going to carry on with Tom Waits ever, if I'm being honest. So yeah. Best album, Planet Waves. Best thing I've watched this month, I'm going to have to give it to Murder Drones. It is a great thing. And the fact that it's quite short, it's only about 2 hours in total, all of the episodes put together. So you could binge it in a day. I didn't do that. Like I said, I watched it in about a week leading up to it coming out, the final episode. But you could feasibly watch it all in one go. I didn't want to do that, because after the first... I mean, like I did that. I did watch the first 3 in a day. So it's definitely bingeable. But I feel like stuff needs time to set, and especially if the show itself doesn't feature the filler, you need to kind of create the filler in your own head to be able to process everything that's going on. I don't think watching it all in one go, anyone, even the youngest, TikTok enthusiastic, computer-brained, who can process information at the speed of light, which I can't do. I mean, whenever I'm not on TikTok, and I never will be, but whenever someone uploads a TikTok to YouTube as a short, and it gets recommended to me, it's always just it honestly feels like one of those 90s data blasts, where it's just stuff flashing right there, and it's meant to like go in, but it's just stuff flashing, and I can't understand what they're saying. Bits of Murder Drones felt like that. That's why I'd like it slowed down a little bit. But for the most part, it was really good, and it's shorter than some of the films I've watched this month. And I just think if you can only check out one thing, check out Murder Drones. And of course, even if you don't enjoy it, it still deserves your support because of, I mean, any power taken away from Disney is a good thing, So you should support indie animation anyway, even if you don't like the show. I happen to like the show. So yeah, we've been going for an hour. Most of that was talking about Murder Drones, I reckon, and quite a bit about Bob Dylan as well. But anyway, that is all for this time, guys. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've had a good August. I hope you have a good next one. September. Hope you have a good September. 13 years since 9/11. That's gonna be happening soon, isn't it? I'll get the cake ready, get the candles. That's a joke. That was a joke. That war is still going on, by the way. I haven't talked about that, have I? That war that everyone keeps, let's not depress ourselves talking about that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this month. Hope you've enjoyed this update. Hope you enjoyed the next month. Hope you have a great life. And I'll see you later. I may see you tomorrow if Digby's available for a live stream. If not, I'll definitely see you on Monday because I've already recorded that video and it's already uploaded, just waiting to be, it's scheduled, waiting to be going up. So I'll see you at the latest Monday. Goodbye. Also, I'm working on episode 2 of songs inspired by other songs. So that should be coming up within the next week or so. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you have, like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next thing that I do. Goodbye.